The letter came on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a government drone to the small apartment where Park Tae-ho lived alone. He was 52 years old, retired from the Earth Defense Coalition after 30 years of service. And he spent most of his days sitting by the window, watching ships fly across the sky toward places he would never go again. The letter said his grandfather was dead. Tae-ho read it 3 times. He had not spoken to Shin Do-yin in over 40 years. The old man had disappeared when Tae-ho was just a boy, leaving behind nothing but rumors and questions. Some said he had gone mad. Others said he had fled to the outer colonies to escape debts. The family never spoke of him. Now he was dead, and he had left everything to Tae-ho. Everything turned out to be a space station called Waypoint 7, located in the outer asteroid belt, approximately 400 million kilometers from Earth, according to the official records attached to the letter. The station had been abandoned for 63 years. It was classified as non-functional, hazardous, and worth almost nothing. Tae-ho put the letter down and laughed. It was not a happy laugh. His daughter arrived that evening. Park Yuna was 19 years old, a student of engineering at the Bisan Technical Institute, and she had her mother's sharp eyes and her father's stubborn jaw. She had come as soon as she heard the news. "So we own a space station now," she said, sitting across from him at the small kitchen table. "We own garbage floating in space," Tae-ho replied. "The disposal fees alone would bankrupt us." Yuna pulled out her tablet and began searching for information about Waypoint 7. There was not much. The station had been built during humanity's first great expansion into space, back when humans were still learning how to survive beyond Earth. It had served as a supply point for mining ships working the asteroid belt. Then the Dominion came. The Dominion was a federation of alien species that controlled most of the galaxy. When they discovered humanity 60 years ago, they had not been impressed. Humans were primitive, they said, violent, dangerous. The war that followed was short and brutal. Humanity lost. The peace treaty that ended the war placed strict limits on human technology. No weapons above a certain power level. No shields beyond basic protection. No expansion beyond the solar system. The Dominion called it guidance. Humans called it a leash. Stations like Waypoint 7 became useless after the treaty. Too far from Earth, too expensive to maintain, too old to upgrade. They were abandoned one by one, left to drift in the darkness. "It says here the station still has basic structural integrity," Yuna said, reading from her tablet. "The hull is intact. Life support might be repairable." "Might be," Tae-ho repeated. "And who would repair it? With what money?" "We could sell the metal. Even old steel has value. Or we could rent it out as storage. Companies are always looking for cheap space." Tae-ho shook his head. "You don't understand. The transport costs alone would eat any profit. Nobody wants that station. That's why grandfather left it to us. He had nobody else." But Yuna would not give up. She argued with him for 3 hours. She showed him calculations, projections, possibilities. She talked about opportunity and potential, and not letting fear make decisions. Finally, Tae-ho agreed. Not because he believed her, but because he was tired of arguing, and because some small part of him wanted to see what his grandfather had left behind. Word spread quickly through his old military friends. Captain Park Tae-ho, the man who had once led boarding parties against pirate vessels, the man who had received 3 commendations for bravery, was now chasing after a pile of space junk. The mockery started within days. Admiral Baek Junho was the worst. He was a tall man with a thin smile and cold eyes. And he had never liked Tae-ho. They had served together years ago. And there had been disagreements, conflicts. Moments when Tae-ho had refused to follow orders he considered wrong. Baek had never forgotten. At a veterans gathering 2 weeks before Taiho's departure, Beak made sure everyone heard his opinion. "The great Captain Park," he announced loudly, glass of wine in hand, trading his medals for rust. "Tell me, Taiho, will you hang your commendations in the airlock? Perhaps the vacuum will preserve them better than your judgment." The room laughed. Taiho said nothing. He finished his drink and left. Yuna found him outside, standing alone in the cold night air. "They're fools," she said. "They're right," he replied. "This is foolish. We're wasting time and money on a dead man's trash. Maybe." Yuna moved to stand beside him. "But it's our trash now, and I want to see it." The transport ship was old and slow. It took 3 weeks to reach the asteroid belt. 3 weeks of cramped quarters and recycled air and meals that tasted like cardboard. Taiho spent most of the journey sleeping or staring at the walls. Yuna spent it studying everything she could find about old space station designs. When Waypoint 7 finally appeared on the view screen, Taiho felt his heart sink. The station was dark. No lights, no signals, no signs of life. It hung in the void like a dead thing, surrounded by tumbling rocks and cosmic dust. The hull was scarred with micrometeorite impacts. One of the docking arms had broken off entirely and floated nearby like a severed limb. "It's worse than the pictures," Taiho said. Yuna leaned forward, studying the image. The main structure looks stable. See how the central hub is still aligned? And the solar arrays are intact. They're just not deployed. Because there's no power to deploy them. There's some power. Yuna pointed at her tablet, showing sensor readings from the transport ship. "Look, the station isn't completely dead. There's a faint energy signature coming from somewhere inside." Taiho frowned. According to all records, Waypoint 7 had been without power for over 6 decades. Its reactors had been removed, its fuel cells drained. There should be nothing. But the readings did not lie. Something was still running. They docked at the only functional airlock, squeezed into old spacesuits that smelled of dust and age, and stepped into the station. The interior was exactly what Taiho had expected. Dark corridors, frozen air, walls covered in frost and silence. Yuna held up a portable scanner, tracking the energy signature. "It's coming from below, deep inside the station." "There is no below," Taiho said. "The station only has 5 levels. We're on level 3. Yuna showed him the scanner. The signal was coming from at least 200 meters beneath them, from a place that should not exist. Taiho looked at his daughter. She looked back at him. "Wow," Yuna said quietly. "I guess grandfather had secrets after all." They began to walk toward the center of the station, following the signal into the darkness, not knowing that they were about to discover something that would change the fate of humanity forever. The corridor seemed to go on forever. Taiho walked in front, his flashlight cutting through the darkness, while Yuna followed close behind with the scanner in her hands. Their breath formed clouds in the frozen air. The only sounds were their footsteps and the soft hum of the scanner. "The signal is getting stronger," Yuna said. "We're close." They had been walking for almost an hour. The station was larger than Taiho remembered from the blueprints, and the deeper they went, the stranger things became. The walls changed from standard station panels to something heavier, thicker. The doors they passed were reinforced with metal. Taiho did not recognize. He ran his hand along the wall. "This isn't civilian construction." "What do you mean?" "This is military design. Bunker grade." Taiho had seen walls like this before, on warships and defense installations. They were built to survive direct attacks. Someone added this after the station was built. Someone who wanted to protect whatever is down here. They reached a massive door at the end of the corridor. It was 3 meters tall and sealed tight. There was no handle, no control panel, nothing to indicate how it might open. Yuna moved closer, examining the surface. There's a scanner here. Old technology, but it might still work. What kind of scanner? Biometric. It needs DNA to open. Taiho understood immediately. This door had been waiting for someone specific. Someone in the bloodline. Someone like him. He removed his glove and pressed his palm against the scanner. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a soft light appeared beneath his hand, and the door began to move. The room beyond was unlike anything Taiho had seen before. It was a command center. Vast and circular, filled with equipment that looked both ancient and advanced at the same time. Holographic displays flickered to life as they entered, casting blue light across the walls. Consoles lined every surface, covered in buttons and switches and screens showing data Taiho could not understand. And in the center of the room, a single pillar of light appeared. "Welcome back," a voice said. It was calm and feminine, like a kind teacher speaking to a student. "I am Hana. I have waited 63 years for authorized personnel to return." Yuna grabbed her father's arm. "An AI. The station has an AI. ANA's light pulsed gently." "Correct. I was created to manage this facility and protect its contents until the proper time. You are Park Taiho, grandson of Shin Do-hyun. Your genetic signature confirms your identity. You have full access to all systems." Taiho stepped forward slowly. "What is this place? What facility?" "This is the true Waypoint 7, Hana replied. The supply station above was a cover, designed to hide what exists below. This facility was built during the First Contact War as humanity's failsafe against defeat. The holographic displays changed, showing images and data. Taiho watched in disbelief as Hana explained. During the war with the Dominion, humanity's leaders had known they could not win. The aliens were too powerful, too advanced, too numerous. But some refused to accept complete surrender. They created a secret project, hidden from both the Dominion and most of humanity's own government. They built Waypoint 7 as a seed for the future. This facility contains 212 stealth warships, Hana said, displaying images of sleek black vessels, unlike anything Taiho had seen. They are equipped with weapons and shields that were banned by the peace treaty. They have been maintained in perfect condition for 6 decades, waiting for activation. Yuna's eyes went wide. 200 ships? Hidden here? That is not all. The display changed again, showing technical drawings and blueprints. This facility also contains the complete archive of humanity's pre-treaty technology. Weapons that the Dominion forced us to destroy. Engine designs they made us forget. Shield systems they claimed were too dangerous for a primitive species to possess. Taiho felt dizzy. He had spent his entire career following the rules of the treaty, accepting the limitations placed on humanity, believing there was no other choice. And all along, this had been waiting. Why? He asked. Why build all this and then abandon it? It was not abandoned, Hana said. It was hidden. The Dominion monitors all human activity. If this facility had been discovered, the consequences would have been severe. Your grandfather and the others who built this place decided that it should sleep until humanity was ready. Ready for what? Hana paused. Ready to stop being prey. Yuna walked to one of the consoles, her engineering mind already trying to understand the systems. This technology is incredible. Some of these designs are more advanced than anything we have now. How is that possible? Before the treaty, humanity developed rapidly, Hana explained. We were desperate, creative, and unafraid of failure. We built things that worked even if we did not fully understand them. After the treaty, the Dominion sent advisors to help us. They guided our development, made our technology more efficient, more refined, and easier for them to counter, Taiho said quietly. Correct. The Dominion's guidance ensured that human technology would never threaten them again. But the technology in this facility was created before that guidance began. It is crude by Dominion standards. It is also powerful in ways they do not expect. Tai-Ho walked to the central display, staring at the images of the hidden fleet. His grandfather had built this. His grandfather had planned for this moment, decades before Tai-Ho was even born. You said there was something else, Tai-Ho said. Something I needed to see for myself. Yes, Hana's light flickered. Follow me. A door opened at the far end of the command center. Beyond it was a long hallway, lit by soft blue lights embedded in the floor. Tai-Ho and Yuna walked together, neither speaking, both trying to understand what was happening. The hallway ended at another massive door. This one opened automatically as they approached. The room beyond was cold, colder than anywhere else in the station. It was filled with rows of large metal pods, hundreds of them, stretching back into the darkness as far as Tai-Ho could see. Cryogenic chambers, Yuna whispered. There are people in here. HA's voice spoke from panels in the walls. 7,423 people. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, pilots. They volunteered to sleep until humanity needed them again. They have been waiting, just like the ships, just like the technology. Tai-Ho walked between the rows, looking at the faces visible through the small windows in each pod. Men and women, young and old, all frozen in time. All waiting. He stopped at one pod near the center of the room. The face inside made his heart stop. It was his grandfather, Shin Do-yan, the man who was supposed to be dead. He is alive, Hana said. His death was a cover story, necessary to prevent the Dominion from investigating his disappearance. He chose to sleep with the others, to wait for the day when his family would return. Yuna moved to stand beside her father. Can we wake him? The revival process takes several hours, but yes, he can be awakened. Tai-Ho stared at the face of the man he had never really known. All his life, he had believed his grandfather was a failure, a man who had run away from his responsibilities. Now he understood the truth. Shin Do-yan had not run away. He'd been preparing for a war that had not yet begun. Do it, Tai-Ho said. Wake him up. The machines began to hum. The ice around the pod started to melt. And Tai-Ho waited to meet his grandfather for the first time in 40 years, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The revival process took 4 hours. Tai-Ho sat beside the pod the entire time, watching as the ice slowly melted and color returned to his grandfather's face. Yuna brought him water and food, but he barely touched them. His mind was too full of questions. When the pod finally opened with a soft hiss, Shin Do-hin took his first breath in 63 years. He was thinner than Tai-Ho remembered from old photographs, and his hair was completely white, but his eyes were sharp and clear. They focused on Tai-Ho immediately, studying him with an intensity that made Tai-Ho feel like a young soldier being inspected by a commanding officer. You look like your father, Do-hin said. His voice was rough from decades of silence. Same stubborn face. Grandfather. Tai-Ho did not know what else to say. Do-hin sat up slowly, his joints cracking as he moved. Hana had already explained that the cryogenic process preserved muscle and bone, but movement would still be difficult for the first few days. He did not seem to care. He swung his legs over the side of the pod and stood, shaking but determined. Help me walk, he said. There's much to discuss. They moved to a small room near the command center. Yuna had found supplies there, food and water and medical equipment that had been stored for exactly this purpose. Do-hyun ate slowly while Tai-Ho and Yuna explained what had happened in the decades since he had gone to sleep. The news was not good. The Dominion had grown bolder over the years. They treated humanity like a problem that needed to be managed, not a species that deserved respect. Their ships patrolled human space constantly, monitoring everything. Their ambassadors made demands that Earth's government always accepted. Any human who spoke against the Dominion disappeared quietly. And recently, things had gotten worse. The Dominion had begun taking human colonies in the outer systems, claiming that humans had violated the treaty. Nobody believed the claims, but nobody could stop them either. "We've lost 4 colonies in the past 2 years," Taiho said. "Thousands of people forced to relocate to planets chosen by the Dominion. The government calls it restructuring. Everyone else calls it theft." Do-hyun nodded slowly. "So they're finally tightening the grip. You expected this?" I hoped I was wrong. Do-hyun pushed his empty plate aside. "When we built this place, we knew the peace would not last forever. The Dominion does not want partners. They want servants. The treaty was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to keep us weak until they decided what to do with us." Yuna leaned forward. "What does that mean? What will they do?" "Best case, they absorb us completely. We become another subject species in their federation, doing whatever they tell us forever." Do-hyun's eyes grew hard. "Worst case, they decide we're too dangerous to keep around. Humans have a reputation in the galaxy. We fight. We don't give up. Some species find that admirable. The Dominion finds it threatening." The room was silent for a long moment. "So you built this place to fight back," Taiho said. "I built this place to give humanity a choice." Do-hyun stood again, steadier now, and walked to a window that showed the cryogenic chamber beyond. "When the war ended, we were broken. Our fleets were destroyed, our best soldiers were dead, and the Dominion was pointing guns at Earth. We had no options. We had to accept their terms." He turned back to face his grandson. "But some of us refused to believe that was the end. We gathered everyone who felt the same way. Scientists who had hidden their research. Soldiers who refused to surrender their skills. Engineers who remembered how to build weapons. We came here to the edge of nowhere, and we created something the Dominion could never find. The ships," Yuna said. "The technology. The army. Yes, and more than that." Do-hyun tapped a control panel, and the holographic display activated, showing a map of the solar system. 12 points of light appeared, scattered across the darkness. Waypoint 7 is not alone. There are 12 other facilities like this one, hidden throughout human space. Each one contains ships, weapons, supplies, and sleeping soldiers. Together, they form the foundation of a new military, one that the Dominion knows nothing about. Taiho stared at the map. The scale of what his grandfather had done was almost impossible to understand. This was not just a backup plan. This was the preparation for a second war. "Why now?" Taiho asked. "Why did you choose this moment to die and pass the inheritance to me?" Do-hyun smiled slightly. "I didn't choose. My body did. The cryogenic process slows aging, but it doesn't stop it completely. I knew I only had a certain amount of time left before the systems would fail. I programmed Hana to release the death notice when my vital signs fell below a certain level. You trusted that someone from the family would come. I trusted that the Park family does not waste things. Even things that seem worthless." The old man's smile faded. "But I also knew that whoever came would need to be strong. The decision to use what's here cannot be made lightly. Once we reveal ourselves to the Dominion, there's no going back." Yuna stood and walked to the display, studying the map of hidden stations. "What about the people sleeping in the other facilities? Who controls them?" "Each facility has its own caretaker, someone from one of the founding families. When Waypoint 7 activates, the others will know. They'll begin their own revival processes." Do-hyun looked at Taiho with something like pride. "But Waypoint 7 is the heart of the network. The command codes for all facilities are here. The strategic plans are here. The decision to wake humanity's hidden army begins with you. Taiho felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He was a retired captain with a small apartment and a daughter in engineering school. He was not a leader. He was not a general. He was just a man who had come to claim a worthless inheritance. But he was also the grandson of Shin Do-yoon, the man who had refused to accept defeat. He was the son of soldiers and the father of an engineer. He was human. The Dominion will come, he said quietly. When they find out what's here, they'll come to destroy it. Yes, Do-yoon agreed. They will. Then we need to be ready. Taiho looked at his grandfather, then at his daughter. We need to wake the others. Start training. Prepare the ships. Do-yoon's eyes lit up with fierce joy. I was hoping you would say that. He pressed a button on the control panel. Throughout the facility, machines began to hum. In the cryogenic chamber, pods started their revival sequences one by one. 7,000 soldiers were waking from a 60-year sleep, ready to fight a war that had never truly ended. Taiho watched through the window as the first pods opened. Men and women emerged, confused and weak but alive. They would need time to recover. They would need training and equipment and purpose. But they would have all of those things. Because Park Taiho, grandson of Shin Do-yoon, had just inherited not a worthless space station, but the hope of humanity. And he would not waste it. 3 weeks passed. The hidden facility beneath Waypoint 7 transformed from a sleeping tomb into a hive of activity. 7,000 soldiers moved through the corridors, training and preparing, shaking off decades of frozen sleep. Engineers worked on the hidden fleet, checking systems and running tests. The station came alive with purpose. Taiho spent every day learning. His grandfather taught him about the ships, the weapons, the strategic plans that had been created 60 years ago. Yuna worked with the engineers, her young mind absorbing the old technology with remarkable speed. She said the designs were beautiful in their simplicity, powerful in ways that modern human technology could never match, but they all knew their secret could not last forever. The warning came on a quiet morning. HAN's voice filled the command center without warning. Alert! 3 vessels approaching. Coalition military signatures. They will reach sensor range in approximately 4 hours. Taiho's blood went cold. Coalition? How did they find us? A freight ship passed through this sector 2 days ago, Hana explained. They likely detected energy signatures from the station and reported them to authorities. Do-hyun entered the command center, moving faster than a man his age should have been able to. His recovery had been remarkable, driven by sheer will and purpose. We knew this would happen eventually. The question is what we do about it. We could hide, Yuna suggested. Shut down non-essential systems, reduce our signature. Too late for that. Taiho pulled up the sensor data. They already know something is here. If we go dark now, they'll just come back with more ships. Then we show them nothing, Do-hyun said. Let them dock. Let them search the upper station. They won't find the entrance to the lower facility unless we allow it. Taiho shook his head. That might have worked before, but look at these energy readings. The revival process used massive amounts of power. Anyone with decent sensors will know something is wrong. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The time for hiding was over. 4 hours later, the coalition ships arrived. They were standard military cruisers, old but well-maintained, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy the visible parts of Waypoint 7 with ease. And leading them, broadcasting on an open channel, was Admiral Baek Junho. Attention, Waypoint 7. This is Admiral Baek of the Earth Defense Coalition. We have detected unauthorized energy signatures from your location. You will power down all systems and prepare for inspection. Failure to comply will be considered an act of hostility. Taiho stood at the communication console, his finger hovering over the response button. Behind him, his grandfather watched silently. Around him, newly awakened soldiers waited for orders. He pressed the button. Admiral Beak, this is Captain Park Taiho. Waypoint 7 is private property, legally inherited under Earth inheritance law. You have no jurisdiction here. A long pause. Then Beak's voice returned, dripping with amusement. Private property? Is that what you're calling it now? The Admiral laughed, and Taiho could imagine the smug expression on his face. Captain Park, I knew you were foolish, but I didn't think you were stupid. That pile of junk you're sitting in is producing more power than a small city. You've clearly activated something you shouldn't have. Now, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Surrender whatever you found, and I might let you keep your pension. Taiho looked at his grandfather. Dahun's expression was calm, but his eyes burned with cold fire. He nodded once. Yuna moved to the tactical console. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. Defense grid ready. Fleet hangar ready. On your order. Taiho turned back to the communication console. Admiral, I'm going to give you one chance to leave. Turn your ships around and return to Earth. Report that you found nothing here. Do this, and we can all pretend this never happened. Beak laughed again. You're threatening me? With what? That antique station doesn't even have weapons. You're right, Taiho said quietly. The station doesn't have weapons. He nodded to Yuna. She pressed a button. Outside, the surface of Waypoint 7 began to change. Panels that had looked like ordinary hull plates slid aside, revealing rows of weapon batteries that had been hidden for 60 years. Each gun was larger than a fighter craft, built to destroy ships much bigger than Beak's cruisers. They powered up with a deep hum that could be felt through the entire station at the same time. The station's shields activated. Not the weak barriers allowed by the treaty, but real shields, military grade, powerful enough to withstand sustained bombardment. And from a hidden hangar on the far side of the asteroid, a single ship emerged. It was black as space itself, sleek and angular, designed to kill. A stealth corvette, one of 200 waiting in the hidden fleet. It decloaked directly behind Beak's flagship, so close that its weapons could not miss. The Admiral's channel went silent. On the sensor display, Taiho could see the Coalition ships scrambling, trying to understand what was happening. Their weapon systems activated, but they did not fire. They were afraid. Admiral Beak, Taiho said, his voice calm and cold. This is my inheritance. My grandfather's gift to humanity. You are currently surrounded by weapons that your ships cannot survive. Leave now, and you will live. Stay, and you will die. This is your only warning. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Beak's voice returned, stripped of all its arrogance. What? What is this? This is impossible. These weapons don't exist. They were destroyed after the war. Not destroyed, Taiho replied. Hidden, waiting, just like us. Another long silence. Then the Coalition ships began to turn. One by one, they pulled back, accelerating toward the inner system. Beak's flagship was the last to move, lingering as if he was considering attack. But the corvette behind him powered up its weapons, and the flagship fled with the others. Taiho watched them go on the sensor display. His hands were shaking. He had just threatened a Coalition admiral with weapons that violated every law humanity had agreed to. There was no going back now. They'll return, Dohyun said, with more ships. And they'll tell the Dominion. I know. The Dominion will demand our destruction. Earth's government will agree. I know. Taiho turned to face the room full of soldiers and engineers. These people had slept for 60 years, waiting for this moment. They deserved to know what was coming. But we're not alone anymore. When word spreads about what happened here, others will come. People who are tired of kneeling. People who remember what humanity used to be. An old soldier stepped forward. He had woken from cryo 3 days ago and had spent every moment since then preparing for battle. His name was Han Sung-ho, and he had been a ship captain before the war. "We've waited a long time for this, Captain Park. Just tell us what to do." Taiho looked at his grandfather. Dahyun smiled, a fierce and proud expression. "Begin broadcasting on all frequencies," Taiho said. "Let everyone know what's here. The ships, the weapons, the soldiers. Let them know that humanity has teeth again." He paused, and then started waking the other stations. "The Dominion wants a war? Let's give them one they'll remember." Throughout the facility, people began to move with renewed energy. The broadcast went out, spreading across human space at the speed of light. And in the darkness between stars, 12 other stations began to wake. The broadcast changed everything. Within days, every human in the solar system had heard about Waypoint 7, the hidden station, the secret fleet, the soldiers who had waited 60 years to fight again. Some people called it a lie. Others called it treason. But millions called it hope. The Dominion's response was immediate and furious. Their ambassador arrived on Earth within hours, demanding that the government destroy Waypoint 7 and surrender everyone inside. The technology hidden there, he declared, was a direct violation of the peace treaty. Humanity had promised to remain harmless. Humanity had broken that promise. Earth's politicians, terrified of what the Dominion might do, agreed to everything. They broadcast orders for Waypoint 7 to stand down. They promised the Dominion that military forces would be sent to destroy the station. They apologized, again and again, for the actions of a few dangerous radicals. But something unexpected happened. Humanity refused to listen. Across the colonies, people began to rise. Not with weapons, not yet, but with voices. Broadcasts flooded the networks, ordinary citizens speaking out against decades of humiliation. "We knelt long enough," they said. "We accepted their rules, their limits, their insults. And what did it get us? Our colonies taken. Our children taught to be ashamed of what they are. Our future decided by aliens who see us as animals." Veterans like Taiho came forward by the thousands. Old soldiers who had hidden their skills. Engineers who had memorized forbidden designs. Scientists who had pretended to forget what they knew. They had been waiting, just like the sleepers in the cryogenic pods, for someone to give them permission to remember. And they came to Waypoint 7. Ships arrived every day. Small transports and cargo vessels loaded with volunteers. Some were young people like Yuna, engineering students and pilots and soldiers who wanted to fight for something larger than themselves. Others were old, men and women who remembered the First War and had never forgiven themselves for accepting defeat. Taiho welcomed them all. The hidden fleet grew stronger by the hour. The other stations came online one by one, their own ships joining the network, their own sleepers waking to join the cause. Humanity's secret army was no longer a secret. 6 weeks after the confrontation with Admiral Beak, Dohyun broadcast a message to all human space. 60 years ago, we were told to kneel, he said, standing in the command center of Waypoint 7, his voice strong and clear. We were told we were primitive, violent, dangerous. The Dominion said they were protecting the galaxy from us. They said they were teaching us to be better. And we believed them because we had no choice. He paused, looking directly into the camera. But we never forgot who we were. We are the species that crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars. We are the builders, the dreamers, the fighters who never stop getting back up. We are humanity. And we have finished kneeling. The Dominion watched. They saw the broadcasts. They tracked the ships gathering at Waypoint 7. They listened to the humans declaring their defiance. And they made a decision. They would crush this rebellion before it could spread. A war fleet assembled at the edge of human space. 300 vessels, including 12 battleships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. They were crewed by species that had been conquering worlds for thousands of years. They had weapons that could shatter moons. They had shields that could survive any attack. And they came to destroy Waypoint 7. The battle began on a cold morning. Taiho stood in the command center, watching the enemy fleet approach on the main display. Around him, officers called out reports. Ship positions, weapon status, shield strength. Yuna was at the tactical console, calm and focused, coordinating the defense grid. Do-hyun sat nearby, too old to command but too stubborn to leave. He watched his grandson with pride. 2,000 ships against 300, Taiho said quietly. The numbers favor us. Numbers don't win wars, Do-hyun replied. Courage does. And will. The Dominion fleet entered weapons range. Their commander, a towering reptilian creature named Vok Telith, broadcast a final warning. Humans, you have defied the natural order. You have rejected the peace we offered. Now you will face the consequences. Surrender, and some of you may live. Resist, and your species will burn. Taiho opened the response channel. We're done taking orders from you. He gave the command. The human fleet surged forward. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Human ships, crude and brutal and powerful, crashed against Dominion lines like a wave against rocks. The old technology, the weapons that the Dominion thought they had erased, tore through enemy shields with devastating effect. Stealth corvettes appeared from nowhere, striking critical targets and vanishing before counterattacks could land. But the Dominion fought back. Their ships were ancient, experienced, deadly. Human vessels exploded. Thousands died in the first hour alone. Yuna called out targets, her voice never wavering. The battleship at Sector 4 is vulnerable. Concentrate fire. A wave of human ships turned toward the target. Their weapons fired in unison, beams of energy that punched through the massive vessel's shields and tore it apart from within. The explosion lit up the darkness like a new star. The Dominion fleet faltered. They had expected easy victory. They had expected humans to break and run. Instead, they found an enemy that would not stop, would not retreat, would not surrender. Taiho watched the battle unfold, making decisions that sent people to their deaths, knowing that every choice mattered. He thought of his grandfather, sleeping for 60 years with nothing but faith that someone would come. He thought of his daughter, brave and brilliant, fighting beside him. He thought of every human who had ever been told they were not good enough. We are enough, he thought. We have always been enough. The battle lasted 12 hours. When it ended, the Dominion fleet was broken. Over 200 of their ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled, broadcasting warnings to their masters. The humans remember. The humans are awake. Do not come back. In the aftermath, Taiho stood on the observation deck of Waypoint 7. The viewport showed the debris field left by the battle, twisted metal and frozen bodies floating in the void. It was a terrible sight, a reminder of the cost of freedom. Yuna joined him, exhausted but alive. They'll come back, she said. With more ships, more soldiers. Yes, Taiho agreed. But so will we. Every human who was watching today saw what we can do. They'll come from every colony, every world, every hidden corner of the solar system. The Dominion wanted to keep us small. Instead, they reminded us how to be large. Do-hyun appeared in the doorway, leaning on a cane but still standing. The other species in the Dominion are watching too. Some of them have been conquered for much longer than us. They'll be wondering if they could do the same thing. Taiho nodded. One war at a time, grandfather. Outside the viewport, human ships gathered. Not just the original fleet, but hundreds of new vessels that had arrived during the battle. Volunteers, rebels, dreamers who had watched the fight and decided to join. On Earth and every colony, people celebrated. The news spread like fire. Humanity had won, not because they were stronger than the Dominion, but because they had refused to accept weakness. They had remembered who they were. Yuna looked at her father. What happens now? Taiho watched the ships outside, the growing fleet of humanity's hope, and felt something he had not felt in years. Not fear, not doubt, pride. Now we build, he said. We train. We prepare. And when the Dominion comes again, we make them regret ever telling us to kneel. He put his arm around his daughter and turned away from the window. The inheritance had never been a space station. It had never been ships or weapons or sleeping soldiers. The inheritance was the memory of what humanity could be when it stopped apologizing for existing. And that inheritance would never be forgotten again.